This is your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. And if you're enjoying this show right now, there's more. You can get more. You can go to the Ed Opperman YouTube channel, and you could subscribe there. And we have archives of all of our past shows for over the past 3 years, about 200, 300 shows. You can also go to the Opperman Report Spreaker channel, and you could follow us there. Again, a ton of shows, about 300 shows on there. And whenever we do an impromptu show, an emergency type broadcast that we do during the week occasionally, you'll get an email notifying you of breaking news and spontaneous broadcasts that we may do during the week. Fucked up. This is your host, private investigator Ed Opperman.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay. Well, sorry about that, guys. Had a lot of technical problems again. What a night. What a night. I want to apologize for the little breakup. We had a little crash in Firefox during the earlier portion of the show with Dean Arnold discussing the case of Vince Foster and his book. And then just now, just had a little glitch here trying to start up the show here, the live portion of our show. It is Friday night, 7 p.m. On July 8th, 2016. Welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. And this show is brought to you by emailrevealer.com. Go to emailrevealer.com, get an autographed copy of my book, okay, which are a little bit on back order, so don't drive me nuts, okay? The books are a little bit on back order. If you want them right away, you can go to amazon.com, get a copy of How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. Also, a lot of little services you can do on there, too. If you think your boyfriend's cheating on you, you give me his email address. We'll catch him cheating online. Okay. Don't forget the members section, OppermanReport.com. A lot of great stuff in there. I just discovered a letter from Gerald Lefcourt, one of Jeffrey Epstein's attorneys. And he's writing a letter to the prosecutor back in 2006, trying to negotiate a plea deal. It's a 23-page letter. I got the whole 23 pages just today. But we have one page up on the OppermanReport.com documents section, and Jerry Lefcourt says in this letter that Jeffrey Epstein helped to found and create the Clinton Foundation. Now you'd think that'd be front page news, you'd think people would be interested in that. But if you are a subscriber to our show, I know you're interested. I know that for sure. You guys love this kind of stuff. Kind of depressing sometimes, but that's what we got, right? Today, I did an interview with Billy Wayne Sinclair, 2 hours. A little member section show. I might play it next week, maybe go to the member section. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but we got 2 hours with him. Very interesting guy. The guy was in prison for 40 years. He got arrested when he was 20 years old for a convenience store stick-up. And he threw him in prison for 40 years. And he was able to get out because he uncovered this scam, this con in the prison there where they were selling pardons. And so he testified for the FBI, and he managed to get out early. He says he didn't cut a deal, but I find it hard to believe. He's a nice guy, though. 70 years old, 40 years in prison. He was put in prison in 1965 when I was 3 years old. I was born in 1962. My God. Can you imagine 40 years in prison? On death row. 7 years on death row. Anyway, so he gets out of prison. Gets a job as a paralegal. Goes to college at 61 years old. Gets out of prison, goes to college. And he starts writing some blog posts here and there. People are interested in his story. He wrote a couple of books. Life in the Balance, the Billy Wayne Sinclair story. Then he makes the mistake of writing his opinion about the West Memphis 3 case. And all hell breaks loose, literally. They start stalking him, and they shut down his website, and, arguing with him, a million emails. The usual story. that we have. Anybody comes in contact with the lunatics of the West Memphis 3 supporters and do not agree with every word they have to say. Did an interview with Brian M. Heiss, OJ Veritas, the Furman tapes. Whoosh, good stuff. This guy, I interviewed him the other day. He did 2 hours about O.J. Simpson. He sent me, as a matter of fact, going up in the member section will be a copy of his timeline. He did his own timeline, mostly based on Ron Goldman, from the time he left the restaurant to the time he could not have gotten to Nicole's house before 10:35, according to Mr. Heiss. But also in there is I have the 30-minute police interrogation of O.J. Simpson. We have that. That's going to go up in the member section. We have another thing called 3 Things That Make You Go, from Mr. Heiss. And I'll give you a hint. It's not Campbell's soup. It's not one of them. Okay? And then he did this thing he's trying to peddle, trying to promote, to try to get produced, is the Furman tapes. Oh, my God. I was blown away when I heard the stuff that's in the Furman tapes. Furman, it's not just these 3 instances of saying the N-word, blah, 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 but all kinds of stuff about Furman, talking about setting people up, beating people up. Documented cases that match up to things that happen in his real police career, where he's kicking in doors and he's holding up a girlfriend or some guys, using her as a shield as he's walking through the house. Creepy stuff, beating the crap out of people, setting people up, planting evidence on people, all kinds of racist galore talk, genocide, talking about he wants to kill all the people in Ethiopia. He wants to kill all the blacks in Ethiopia because they don't deserve to live. And this is a guy now who's on Fox News. And so this Mr. Brian Heiss did a very, very good job putting all that together, man. He did a very good job. I'm very impressed with it. So check that out in the member section. It's not in the member section yet, but it's floating around. By the way, too, guys, with the member section, I put up something on YouTube. I did an interview with Gary Byrne, who was the Secret Service agent who wrote the book Crisis of Character, a White House Secret Service tale about Bill and Hillary Clinton, right? Okay. I interviewed him July 7th. Was that yesterday? Really? No wonder I'm so exhausted. No wonder I'm so tired all the time. Oh, my God. Anyway, I interviewed him. And it was such good information. We talked about Vince Foster, too, which is, we're doing like a whole Vince Foster thing. And tomorrow we're doing a Vince Foster show, too. But I talked to him about Vince Foster. We talked about the Clintons, all kinds of stuff. He told me, we got a lot of breaking news. There's a lot of exclusive stuff came out of that interview. And as a matter of fact, I got to tell him not to pat myself on the back, which I might as well, no one else does, right? But not to pat myself on the back. But Gary Byrne, I could tell you right now, was very impressed with the line of questioning that I gave him. And he was very impressed with that interview. We had to cut it a little bit short because it was a mix-up in the time. He thought it was only going to be 15 minutes, but he gave me 45 minutes. And I know I asked him a lot of stuff, and I was familiar with things that a lot of other people have been interviewing. Certainly are not. They just want to go over the surface stuff, about Monica Lewinsky and the blue dress and all that kind of nonsense. But I asked him some very detailed questions about Vince Foster because he was there for that whole shamil, And we clarified some things, in previous Vince Foster shows, people have been saying like, whoa, Vince Foster never signed out at the Secret Service desk when he left the White House. Well, Gary Byrne was a legitimate guy. I don't think he has any reason to lie about it. If anything, he was embellishing upon things he didn't like about the Clintons. And he clarified all that issue. And also, too, he said some breaking news, exclusive information, was that when Bill and Hillary came into the White House, they had the whole White House telephone system removed because they thought that the Bushes had planted wiretaps on the phone system. So, if I get around to it, I'll put out a press release, or I'll just wait until Rush Limbaugh or Alex Jones listen to my show and talk about it. And steal all my good stuff. Boo. Boo, Mr. Jones. Hey, okay. tomorrow we're doing another Vince Foster show with Patrick Knowlton. Now, Patrick Knowlton, we're doing an hour with him, and he's the guy who actually discovered the body of Vince Foster there in the park. And, you hear his story. They harassed him. FBI was chasing him around, annoying him and doing all kind of stuff. I think he had to sue the Supreme Court. Fascinating story. And no one's interviewed him before on the radio in the whole hour, so we're going to have him for the first time. Second hour, we're going to have the great William Ramsey, who has written a book about Aleister Crowley. But also, too, William Ramsey, a lot of people may not be aware, but he is an expert on the Vince Foster case as well. So we're going to have him. We're going to have William Ramsey on for the second hour. William Ramsey is a great big help with the show. Helped me book these guests and all kind of stuff like that. Great guy. Thank you very much, William Ramsey. Got a big announcement for you. Really big announcement. A couple of things. First of all, tomorrow here in Las Vegas, there's going to be 2 demonstrations that we're supporting. One of them starts at about 11 a.m., and it's a sit-in at FBI headquarters on West Lake Mead. Not the old FBI headquarters, it's the new building on West Lake Mead. And we're going to be out there in orange jumpsuits, and they even have a prison bars and stuff like that. And we're going to demand that Hillary Clinton be arrested for perjury, for perjuring herself before Congress. This is serious business, guys. You do get sworn in when you testify before Congress. And if we're going to let her just go and lie to Congress, what's next? Murder? Drug dealing? The Clinton Foundation? Charity fraud? So we can't let her get away with that. Okay, let's see. What do we do first? There's a lot going on, guys. A lot of stuff I wish I could talk about. A lot of stuff I can't. But some of the stuff I can. In the past month, the listenership for this show has about doubled. Okay? In the past month and a half, 2 months. Just for this show, for the Friday show and the Saturday show, our audience has doubled. And just the stuff that I can keep track of on Spreaker and iHeart and TuneIn and these little things in YouTube, our daily listening volume, our plays for the day, has doubled what we normally had. Some days it's tripled. So things are really taking off over here. And for American Freedom Radio, which we play on Saturday nights at 5 p.m., that American Freedom Radio right now in the Alexa ratings is the number 1 listener-sponsored internet radio show out of all the Alexa ratings. So that's a pretty big deal, because it's a fairly new station. It was bigger years ago, but it's only come back about a couple of years now. So as the show gets bigger, we get bigger guests. We have more weight. We can get more things done. And one of the things we need done, though, is sponsors, And where we are right now, I'm working on this deal. We can get on KCAA, AM and FM in California. It covers like 60% of the whole state of California. It's a huge chunk. They want us on there. Now, if you want to advertise, okay, and I'm talking really cheap, man, like $50 a week. Okay, $50 a week for an additional 1-hour show that would play there at KCAA. I would need about 3 sponsors. $50 a week. And you got to pay like 10 weeks in advance, okay? 15 weeks in advance. So you're talking about $750. We would cover the whole state of California, practically, right? And then I'll throw in all the rest of this stuff for free. All the stations, 7 stations Friday night, 7 stations on Saturday night, Tuesdays, late night in the Midlands. Saturday night, we're on CBS Radio Saturday. Saturday and Sunday night, we're on Para X Radio with CBS Radio, Internet. And we're on both nights, prime time, 7 o'clock Friday, 7 o'clock Saturday, and 7 o'clock Sunday. And then plus all these other stations got an iHeart, YouTube, all that stuff. So really need your support, guys, to get this thing going. Now, one of the big announcements we got is that Awake Radio, as you guys know, last week, as a matter of fact, I think it was on Saturday, Awake Radio was off the air. Awake Radio at one time was a very large station based in the UK. They had a website in Australia, in the UK, in the US, and they had a little TV thing going there for a while. It was founded by a guy named Granada Steve, and for a time there, it was really, it had some weight. It was a really powerful station. It was right up there, top 5-10 internet radio stations. Granada Steve developed COPD, which is that thing where you can't breathe, And it took its toll on him. And Granada Steve was a really nice guy. He was always kind to me and helped me out when I needed his help, even toward the end there, where he was dying. He was down to like 75, 80 pounds, and he couldn't breathe. He couldn't, move around. But even then, when trouble would come up, he would pitch in and help. So anyway, and toward the end there, some people weren't so nice to him and didn't treat him with the respect that I think he deserves. So in honor of keeping the station going, and in Granada Steve's memory, and also, too, for the potential that it has, it still has the website, awake.us, and it is still quite a presence. And I know we get listeners over there. I can see it. And there's a chat room there that's usually, empty, but sometimes there's people there. And we can build it up. And so I've been nominated to be the new general manager for Awake Radio. And, to kind of spearhead things. And we managed to get a $300 donation thanks to Shaziz and Muddy, a couple of guys from Shaziz Radio. And we're going to fund the whole station for a whole year and the website for a whole year. Okay, I may need a dedicated computer to run it, but that's down the road. I can probably pay for it myself anyway. Some people I'm bringing on right off the bat that have already been approved is Pierce Redmond. He's going to be doing a show on American Freedom Radio, but we're going to replay it on Awake Radio right before this show. Okay, so it'll be on right before me. Chuck Ocelli got 5 nights a week of shows available from Chuck Ocelli. They're either going to be simulcast or replayed. So that's another 5 nights of Chuck Ocelli. Nick Drago from Nick of Time, he's going to be giving us his show. Dylan Wade, you might remember, the 15-year-old kid, he's going to be doing a show about movie reviews. And Chris Milligan from Trying Day Press wants to do a show. So these are the ones I got signed up so far. Now, there was a show I did, I think it was on Staten Island with these 3 hosts, and we're going to simulcast them, I believe, on Wednesday nights. The old hosts we had on there, Cat Waters and Sky Streak and Luca, all those guys, they're still going to be on there. And another guy, Anthony Choice Diaz, you might remember, I interviewed him one day. It's in the member section. He's going to be hosting a show. And there's a couple more that we're still working on. Oh, yeah, a couple of local activists and people here from local Las Vegas that I want to bring in some local shows, too, from local Las Vegas. Because we do this show here on Spreaker has a lot of local listeners in Las Vegas, And so I'd like to make more of a political presence here and make our voice heard here locally in local politics here in this town. So I'm very, very excited. Yeah, great lineup. Wow. Okay, and that's just the start. Okay, let me tell you something. People respect what we're doing. Yeah, all the other. By the way, too, if you're a host out there, and I know there's a lot of hosts listening, okay, and I know there's a lot of station owners out there listening because I know because after my guests they're still being interviewed, they're getting contacted by other hosts to do interviews. I know you're listening, guys. If you want to do a show on here, just get a hold of me. OppermanReport.com at Gmail. OppermanReport at gmail.com. Get a hold of me, and if you already have a show that you do, a podcast or something, send me a demo. Okay, I barely even listen. The only rule is you can't curse. Okay, but send me a demo. If you don't have a demo, but you still want to give it a try, send me a proposal of what you have in mind. Okay, and that's our plan there with Awake Radio. And I am confident that 6 months from now, Awake Radio is going to be something to be considered in the radio biz here. Also, too, one more thing. If you want to volunteer to help play the shows on Awake, because what's going to happen is now, you know me, how busy I am, and I got this big job coming up that I'm across the guys. I need your prayer for this job. It's a career-making job for me. Be able to write a book at the end, do a movie, all kinds of fun stuff, but and put some nasty people where they belong to be put. If you want to volunteer, though, at Awake Radio, I need people to play podcasts or to help produce shows. So if you're interested in helping that, you get a producer's credit. You can plug your stuff on the air, whatever you want, man. I'm easy. If you got a show, send me a copy of your show. If you want to do a show, give me an idea of what you have in mind. Keanu Reeves could play me in a movie. People used to say, believe it or not, Abigail making fun of me over there. I sense. Believe it or not, I used to look like Richard Gere, okay? Believe it or not. And I got some pictures of me when I was young that people actually used to say, oh, boy, you look just like Richard Gere. So anyway, here we go. Let's get started. Oh, boy, here's the fun part of the show, right? Here's the fun part. Oosh. Let me see what time it is. On September 12th, 2007, while being held in the Otis Barnum Correctional Center on Rikers Island, a man who was being held on Rikers Island awaiting trial got a hold of a court document form, and he wrote out a handwritten civil rights complaint. On September 1st, 2007, at approximately 7:30 p.m., on the corner of Castleton Avenue and Heberton Avenue, a police officer named Redacted and his team stopped me for reasons of their own. I was ordered to place my hands on the black SUV in which they were riding in. I complied with no problem. The officer, named Redacted, then patted me down by ways of going through my pockets and socks and finding nothing illegal on my person. The officer, named Redacted, then places me in handcuffs and then performs an cavity search on me by ways of digging his fingers in my rectum in the middle of the street. The writer goes on to describe how the officer unzipped his pants, pulled out and inspected his genitals, quote, in the middle of the street. All the while, there are people passing back and forth. I told the officer named Redacted to stop. And if he wanted to do a strip search on me, I'm willing to go to the police station if he wanted to, because I had nothing to hide. My request was ignored. I then told the officer, named Redacted, that I was filing charges for him violating my civil rights. I was then hit with drug charges and told by the officer, named Redacted, that I don't deserve my city job to the fact that I'm a convicted felon on parole. Then he goes on to say I work for the New York City Parks Department. He goes on to fill out this form, okay, which is like a complaint form. And under injuries category, He writes, "The injuries I received was to my manhood, in which the officer violated. Through the search of his rectum and genitals for his own personal pleasure, the officer violated my civil rights." Seven years later, and if you notice too, if you read this, he wrote that on September 12th in Rikers Island, which is no fun place to be, on Rikers Island. No fun place at all. And his arrest was on September 1st. So he was on Rikers Island for 11 days for nothing. Because they dropped the charges. Who knows how long he was there after he filed this, but they dropped the charges. Ultimately, he didn't get charged. He didn't get convicted in anything here. They just take a guy off the street and put him in jail for 12 days. First, you rape him. 7 years later, you see a YouTube video on TV, all right? And it's Eric Garner. And it kind of starts off, and he says, the cops have come over to me and says, I just broke up a fight. I didn't sell anything. I did nothing. Every time you see me, you arrest me. I'm tired of it. It stops today. And as they come to get him, he holds his hands up, and he says, don't touch me. Don't touch me. Please don't touch me. And that's when they grab him from the back of his neck, and they choke him out, throw him to the ground. And he's down there, and we watch this guy 15, 20 times say, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. All right? They handcuff him. He's lying on the floor there, dying. 11 minutes. There's an 11-minute YouTube video on this. We watched the whole thing, the big one. Guy dying in the street. Now, me and Eric Garner, he's about 10 years younger than me, but when I was 30 years old, I'm walking down the street and the cops stop me and they stick their finger up my butt in the middle of the street and then throw me in jail for 11 days. That's going to affect me, I'm going to think about that every night before I go to bed. I'm going to think about it every morning when I wake up. Okay? And then I see that cop again 7 years later. Right? And these cops start bum rushing me from all angles, choking me out. There's nothing in me that could stop me from fighting back. I don't think anybody. You're a rape victim. Your instincts are to fight back. Of course you're going to struggle. A little bit like he did. The guy was so fat and out of shape he couldn't do it. Okay, Ed. Hey, Ed, most cops are good guys. A couple of bad apples. Right? Right? Isn't that the theory? Right? There's a couple of bad apples. But in this case, if you watch that 11-minute video, this guy's lying on the floor dying in his handcuffs. And the policy is, the procedure is, the guy's lying on the floor dying. You can't take the handcuffs off. You got to keep him handcuffed because he could spring into action and jump up and take everybody's guns away and start shooting people. That's what could happen. So the policy and the training is to leave this guy dying on the floor in handcuffs. The supervisor shows up. There was a sergeant there at that scene. If you watch the 11-minute video, this isn't a couple of cops, a couple of bad apples. There's a supervisor stepping over his body, walking over it. And she's a black lady. It's not as simple, guys, as it's racism and it's this and it's that. A couple of bad apples. The system is broken. Okay? There is no other profession on the face of this earth, doctor, lawyer, I don't care what you are, where the consensus is that we have to attach cameras to these people because we can't trust them to do what they're supposed to be doing. We got to attach cameras on them to see what they're out there doing. Because we can't believe what they say. They're a bunch of liars. Shooting people left and right. And we got to, well, you know, even when we see they're right in front of our eyes, we let them do it. We're going to take a commercial break. You can also go to OppermanReport.com and become a member. If you become a member, you help support the free archives on Spreaker and YouTube, and you help support the free shows on Friday evening and on Saturday evening. Each of these shows, Friday evening and Saturday evening, are carried for free on 7 internet stations, okay? So you help support that, but also, too, at OppermanReport.com in the members section, we have exclusive content. Shows that are recorded during the week that are only available to members. So please check out OppermanReport.com and help support the show.
The son of a Polish immigrant who grew up in a Brooklyn tenement, Bernie Sanders. He went to public schools, then college, where the work of his life began, fighting injustice and inequality, speaking truth to power. Bernie moved to Vermont, won election and praise as one of America's best mayors. In Congress, Bernie stood up for working families and for principle, opposing the Iraq War, supporting veterans. Now he's taking on Wall Street and a corrupt political system that holds up a rigged economy. Bernie's campaign is funded by over 1 million small contributions from people like you. He's fighting for living wages, equal pay, and tuition-free public colleges. Bernie Sanders.
People are sick and tired of establishment politics, and they want real change.
Bernie Sanders, husband, father, grandfather, an honest leader, building a movement with you to give us a future to believe in.
I'm Bernie Sanders, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Bernie 2016.
Check out strawmanmusic.com. Sean Duff is our webmaster here at the Opperman Report, and he's a very talented musician. He's part of a band called Strawman. They're based up there in Canada. Don't hold that against them. These are like-minded folks. If you like the shows you hear on the Opperman Report, you'll like the music that they have over at strawmanmusic.com.
Enough is enough. Wall Street's greed and illegal behavior drove this country into the worst economic downturn since the 1930s. And then, after getting a huge taxpayer bailout because they were too big to fail, it turns out that 3 out of the 4 largest banks are bigger today than they were before we bailed them out. That's crazy. I'm Bernie Sanders. My plan: break up the big banks who are strangling our economy and make them pay their fair share of taxes. Then we can invest in the middle class, expand Social Security, and provide universal college education. I'll rein in Wall Street behavior so they can't crash our economy again. Will they like me? No. Will they begin to play by the rules if I'm president? You better believe it. I'm Bernie Sanders, Democratic candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Bernie 2016.
You know, you can get a copy of my book, How to Succeed as a Private Investigator, if you go to my website, emailrevealer.com. Now, this is a limited edition book, okay? And you can get a signed copy of this book, and it'll be personally autographed to you or whoever you want to give the book to as a gift. Once you have my signature on that book, you can copy the signature and put it on checks and pass them all over the world. Emailrevealer.com. Get a copy of my book, How to Succeed as a Private Investigator.
He's fought injustice and inequality his whole life. Bernie Sanders. As a college student, he was arrested for challenging segregated housing. Bernie marched with Dr. King and thousands of others for civil rights. In Congress, Bernie stood up for working families on health care and jobs. Now he's taking on Wall Street banks and a corrupt political system that keeps in place a rigged economy. Bernie Sanders, a reformer who believes in ending racial profiling and mass incarceration so the justice system works for everyone. Bernie Sanders,
There is no president who will fight harder to end institutional racism and reform our broken criminal justice system.
Bernie Sanders, an honest leader building a movement with you to give us a future to believe in.
I'm Bernie Sanders, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Bernie 2016.
Okay, welcome back. The point I'm trying to make here, guys, is that the system is broken. We got this other guy. He's riding along with his girlfriend, driving a car. They got the little 4-year-old kid in the back. And they get pulled over for a broken taillight. Right? Now, I said this on Facebook today and made a little comment. It got 100 likes and people sharing it. But it's 2016. Okay? How about this? If a cop pulls up behind you, he sees you got a broken taillight, they take a picture of the taillight, they mail you a ticket. There's no reason to pull you over. Okay? There's no reason to pull you over and stick a gun in someone's face. You know? But the thing is to see a taillight and pull someone over and try and get them on something, see, that's considered good policing. Okay? That's good police work. Okay? And if they had some marijuana in their car, and if this cop would have made an arrest, they gave him a ticket for the marijuana, that's good police work there, Mr. Policeman. It's not a situation, right? Here's how life should be. Okay, if everything wasn't broken, what would happen is in a civilized world, the cop would pull up next to the woman there and say, "Excuse me, ma'am, I noticed your taillight's out. Better get that fixed, because otherwise, you're gonna make a turn in the dark. Someone's gonna hit you." "Oh, officer, thank you so much for telling us. We didn't realize that. You know what? We really can't afford to fix it. We've known a couple of weeks. We've known about it, but we're saving up the money to get it. We're going to get it fixed as soon as we can. By the way, we noticed some little boys picking on a girl around the corner there. Why don't you run back there and straighten that out for us, please, officer?" "Yes, ma'am, I will. Thank you." Now, that's what would happen in civilized society. But instead, it's good police work to have a reason to pull somebody over, an excuse. Probable cause is an excuse to pull somebody over in their car and try and write some tickets up. Hopefully you get them on something, right? You get them, they got some paraphernalia in their car, right? Because now you got both of them. You got the driver and the passenger. You can give them both tickets, right? Desk appearance tickets. You're going to arrest them on the spot there, especially if they got a lapse in their driver's license or something really good to get them on. Now, you get them down there to jail, right? You throw them in the jail. They don't have their cell phone with them. They don't have everybody's phone numbers memorized. They don't know people's phone numbers to call. Now, they're there all day long trying to find somebody to get them out of jail. You got to scam. You got to call the bail bonds companies collect, because they'll take the collect calls. And then you got to trick them into calling your relatives to get you out. This is what people think, it's glamorous job to be a PI, right? Half of my job last week was helping some guy, some schmo, okay, who had tickets in California. They got a warrant for him. He didn't pay show up for court. They got bail bondsmen chasing him over here in Nevada. And we're trying to get this guy through the arraignment without being present so the bail bondsmen don't snatch him up. Right? Because the system is broken, guys. Okay? It's not a situation where, okay, my goodness, I've been arrested for not having my license current. Well, officer, how do I get out of here? No. We're going to take your phone. We're going to take your phone numbers now because we hate each other. You get before the judge, right? Well, can you? We're going to give you a $100, $200 fine if you plead guilty today. You can go to work to pay for this fine. You can get out now if you plead guilty. We'll let you go. No, I want to fight this. Okay, $10,000 bond. Go back to jail to come with the bond. Oh no, I gotta go to work. Then you better plead guilty. Okay, I got a $200 fine if I plead guilty. Yeah. Do you have that money on you now? No. Okay, well, you can make payments, and you have to go to these classes, drug awareness class. Okay. Now the guy never makes the payments. He never goes to the class because he can't get anywhere, riding the bus and stuff. They catch him again. Now they got a bench warrant on him. The next time it's double, triple. Now the guy's facing 2-3 years, right? He's broke. Can't get a job now because he's got all these warrants and crap on him. And you see, I sit through these arraignments all day long, man. And I see they're crying. Your Honor, my father died last year. My mother's still in the hospital right now. I was riding in a car with a guy that had a joint. And it's been 2 years of hell trying to get through this. Can you have some mercy on me? Okay? People being thrown in jail because they're poor. Now, oh, brother. The system is broken. Then you listen to these guys, they're talking about, okay, now what's the solution? You got this guy with the tail light, shot dead in his car. Well, what we need is more community policing. That's the solution to this. Community policing. What we should have is that cop who's pointing his gun in the guy's face over the tail light and just shot the guy. We need him walking around the neighborhood in the community. That's their solution. Because if he's walking around amongst us, everything's going to be better. Everything's going to be fine then. Because then he's going to learn to get along with us, right? Right? By the way, it can't be something, because you hear this guy in the background. This guy knew he was guilty, man. This guy knew he messed up big time, right? Now, do his buddies come along and say, oh, my God, dude, you messed up. Let's fix this. Let's get this guy to the hospital. Let's help the girlfriend. This poor little kid is traumatized. Let's get him some food. Let's get him some water. Let's take him to, No. They arrest her. They separate her from the kid. Don't give him any food and water all day long. They don't give any medical attention to the guy. The system is broken. And it's not just racism. It's not just black people this is happening to. I've had white people on this show. Eric Scott, I've had his dad on here. The guy was a West Point graduate. His white, red-headed kid with the uniform, with the West Point cadet hat. They killed him. It's the whole system is broken. Because even these bizarre ideas we have now of the ways to deal with this, you got in Ferguson, Missouri, right? You got this guy, Mike Brown. Walking down the middle of the street and going home. He's got his little buddy with him, too, by the way. No one ever talks about that, but he got his buddy with him. He's walking down the street. There's some kind of altercation with the cop. Originally, it was all about jaywalking, right? Somehow that kid winds up dead in the street from bullet wounds. Now, later on, there's a story. He's trying to wrestle with the cop's gun. He's trying to take his gun away. And this cop just out of self-defense somehow struggled and got the gun back from him, and shot him in several different locations. There's bullet casings, near the car. There's bullet casings about another 40 feet away, That's some fight. Listen, I wasn't a witness, but I've looked at crime scene diagrams. Okay? I've seen a couple of them in my life. All right? I've drawn some myself. I've created some as exhibits. When I was a kid. About Mike Brown's age. Okay? So there's some bullet casings by the truck and there's some bullet casings by his body when he's face down on the ground. Right? Now he had his little buddy with him, right? Now if it's true and it was a struggle for this gun, and it was a fight, and they was trying to murder this cop. Wouldn't they have arrested the little buddy? Hey, you. Your friend just tried to kill me. You were here with him. A conspiracy to commit murder against a police officer of the law. You're under arrest. Right? Like they just busted this woman. They shot this guy's boyfriend. Right? They busted her. You're under arrest, lady. Yeah. You're in handcuffs. How come they never put Mike Brown? How come they never put his buddy in handcuffs that night? How come they never took a statement from him that night? How come they told him, get the hell out of here? Okay? Oh, Ed, this was all investigated, Ed, by the Department of Justice. Al Sharpton came down there, and Al Sharpton, he's an uppity one. He's one of them uppity ones. And Al Sharpton got his, protesters out in the street. And then he went to the Attorney General, Eric Holder, and Loretta Lynch. And they all wanted to frame this white police officer. Right? That's the theory. But that's not the fact. Al Sharpton's an FBI agent. Okay? Al Sharpton's working for the FBI. Okay, fine. He brings it to the DOJ, and it gets whitewashed. Okay? But let's look at the facts. They don't talk to the buddy, right? But not only that. Okay? The whole city of Ferguson was in an uproar. See, Black Lives Matter was formed because the whole city of Ferguson knew what was going on. And the people in that neighborhood who knew Mike Brown, many of them probably didn't like Mike Brown. He was kind of a tough guy, a little troublemaker, right? A lot of guys probably didn't like him. But what they knew was, if people saw him get shot with his hands up, the word gets around quick. And then they knew that they left his body there in the street all day long in the heat. They wouldn't even cover it up. And then when the people came into it was a spontaneous eruption, a demonstration of a city. And they went out there night after night after night after night because they knew it was wrong. Do you understand? A whole city doesn't get into an uproar because it's fun and fashionable, and turn their own lives into where they're actually making deliveries to people's homes and delivering them food and water because they can't get out and go shopping because the whole city is in an uproar over what went on in that city. And anyway, the investigator found all kinds of crazy stuff. 20% of the cities has warrants out for them. Because they're pulling everybody over, left and right and giving them tickets galore. Because the system is broken, guys. The system is broken. We can't. So we're trained like little Pavlov's dogs to react. Okay, innocent guy gets shot. An unarmed kid gets shot in the street. Okay, that's what it is. It's an unarmed guy gets shot in the street. That's wrong. It's right there. It's wrong. But now we come in, stealing a gun. So what's our response? Okay, we're gonna protest. We're gonna march. We're gonna ask for an FBI, Department of Justice investigation. Of course, they're gonna clear it every time, right? Now there's this debate over and over. What, the Black Lives Matter? All lives matter. Okay, the whole race thing is a trap and it's a trick because just as many white people are getting killed by cops. Okay, it's just not reported. And when white people get killed, they don't have that kind of grassroots movement already with the churches and all that stuff already organized to take to the streets and protest. Although it's all co-opted by characters like Sharpton and the new Black Panther Party, which are all FBI informants. Then, the supposed truther movement, which turns out to be a bunch of racists. I hate to say it. But when I first got into this, 3 years ago, I saw quickly. I started having some black folk on my show. That was the first mistake. Having the Black Panthers on and Cynthia McKinney and stuff like that. It wasn't well received, let me tell you that. But turns out that the truther movement this patriot movement is pretty much a racist movement, a bunch of racists. And you hear these bizarre things, man. There's some kind of the Black Lives Matter is part of they're creating a martial law, and that somehow the government's arming UN troops and arming Black Lives. The truth movement, okay, this awake movement is broken as well, okay? When we're trying to come up with boogeymen, that Black Lives Matter are boogeymen that we're to be afraid of, when it's a group that was created because unarmed men are being killed, okay? Not to fight police and to shoot and kill people or to scare white people. It's because unarmed people are being killed. And this is something that's happening over and over and over again. And this bizarro fear of the UN, and the UN troops, and as the UN troops are somehow going to invade the United States or somehow take over, and confiscate guns here in the United States. There's 600,000 U.S. law enforcement officers. That's not National Guard. That's not Army. We're just talking about cops. There's 600,000 across the country. Probably more than any country in the world. The UN has 80,000 soldiers, and we fund them. 25% of their funding comes from the United States. Their headquarters is in New York. I think we control the UN, don't you? Yeah. But no, the Truther movement, no, the UN to be scared of. Because there are 80,000 guys that are come here and take over what? They can't even take over Henderson, Nevada. They couldn't. Hey. Let's see. Got 9 minutes left. I had a whole bunch of stuff I want to talk about. A whole bunch. When I grew up in New York City, in the 80s, I was a young guy, and I was an activist. And we had some incidents. A couple of cases were really glaring cases. One of them was Eleanor Bumpers, this woman in the projects. Oh my God. She was being evicted because her rent of $98 a month was 2 or 3 months behind. So the housing authority was trying to evict her, and they called SWAT to come down and evict her because she had an eviction notice. And this little old lady, how old was she? She was oh my God, 80 years old. 80. Anyway, so they come busting in there. She's naked. They claim she's holding a knife, but there's some doubt about that. But there's a little old lady, 80 years old, and they shoot her with a shotgun. They kill her. Eleanor Bumpers, right? Because it's so important that they evict this lady for $300 of her rent that she owed, right? But now, what happened was, in reality, was just a week before this eviction, the housing department had brought in social services, and they came in and spoke to her. She's talking about how Reagan was breaking her stove. Ronald Reagan was coming into her house and breaking her stove, and all this kind of stuff like that. And they said, well, this woman's incompetent. She's not in control. She's psychotic. She's not in control of her facilities. She's not in control of her affairs, and she needs, to be supervised. But somehow things get crossed in the mail or whatever. And it turns out that the same government agency to help this woman and give her housing now sends over a social worker and diagnoses her as psychotic. That same government agency then decides to evict her. And then they shoot her and kill her. And that year there was another incident. Michael Stewart, a graffiti artist on a subway, and he's spray painting the walls on the subway. And the cops grab him and they beat him into a coma. He's lying in a coma for a couple of weeks and they kill him. right? Another death. So it was a long, hot summer, that's 1984. And that year, around November, this thing happened where these activists spread the word that, it's payback time. And what they did was they rented a moving truck and they rounded up about 40 guys. And I think they even had like a van and a couple of cars too. And inside this moving van, they had a bunch of axe handles. Because you can go to, back in those days, you could go to the hardware store, you could buy axe handle for like $3.50, $5, really cheap. So they had these pickaxe handles and then some 2x4s and some other items back in this truck. And there was some kind of event going on in there, some kind of political, event going on. There was rallies and protests out in front. And all of a sudden this truck pulls up and all these guys come jumping out with their axe handles. And they beat the crap out of the cops. And as they jumped out, they were chanting, payback time, payback time, payback time. And it was called the Bumpers Stewart Brigade. And no one got shot. 1984. Skin on skin. Cops had their bats and their radios and stuff like that, They used to hit you with the radios back in those days. Again, no one got shot, But there was some payback, One time, I did a show with Reverend Bob Levy from the Howard Stern Show. And he was from Staten Island, same Staten Island neighborhood I was from. And we were talking about all the different places. We used to go party by the creek in Great Kills. And we're talking about, how the cops would come and they'd steal our pot and they'd steal our beer, and roust us. And we'd run. But every now and then, if it was late at night, we'd already be through half the beer, we'd be drinking and smoking. And the cops showed up, we'd say, no, not tonight, And we'd fight them, and it would be, the fight was on. They'd beat us with their radios, we're beating them back with tree limbs. But again, no one got shot. We're living in a different world today, guys. Okay? Where people are getting shot now, not for rushing the cops with axe handles or for fighting with the cops over stolen beer and stolen pot. People are getting shot dead for broken taillights and getting pulled over traffic stops, and dying in the jail later on. And people are walking down the street and the cops are pulling them over and they're sticking their finger and digitally raping them in public. Now, we have to say this is no longer tolerable. We have to take a stand against this. And we have to, this whole business at the airports where, when your little 7-year-old daughter is being felt up by these people. The conditions we're living under are intolerable. The system is broken. And in many ways, all the rules are out the window, on their side at least. And if we continue going the way we're going, what will we be like in 10 years from now? Will they just be walking into our homes, into our refrigerators and taking our food and sleeping with our families, raping our wives right in front of us? Anyway, we're out of time, and I think that's a good way to end this because I believe that we are out of time. And it's time we stood up and said, that's it, no more. This ends today. And if we end up dead in the street, it's better to die standing than to live on your knees, cowering.